Last year, we had the pleasure of speaking to Keith Richards from the Consumer Duty Alliance to speak about consumer duty 1 year on. That conversation proved to be very popular with advisors, so we felt it was worthwhile revisiting this important topic as part of IPAW. So Keith, thank you for joining us again. It's great to have you back. For anyone watching who may not have seen our previous chat last year, can you please remind us what the Consumer Duty Alliance is?
Of course, and it's great to be with you again, Vicky. The Consumer Duty Alliance is the very first dedicated professional membership body for the personal finance sector, which incorporates mortgage protection as well. It's independent, not-for-profit, and very importantly, it's got no commercial output or activities, so completely unconflicted. The board are all pro bono, so it's mainly practitioners from the sector and other subject matter experts that give their time up for free. And we are looking to develop a protection alliance. So again, we don't want to leave any practitioners out across the sector, not least, of course, Vicky, consumer duty really has started to join up a more holistic approach. So even if you're a specialist in the wealth area, the message is now getting through that you need a more holistic approach under the duty. And if you don't specialize in an area, then you do need to have an arrangement where you can pass your clients on or introduce them to specialists in those particular areas. And of course, it's becoming an interesting landscape, even with an aging demographic where you've now got lifetime mortgages starting to be considered, even by some of the advised clients under an IFA. But that might not be an area where an IFA is particularly familiar. So we're starting to see a bit more join up between protection, lending and wealth management.
That's fantastic news. And I mean, you've expanded hugely and really, music to our ears to hear that there will be a protection alliance. And I'm sure lots of people listening will be very pleased with that news. So we look forward to hearing more about that next year, Keith.
Indeed, yes.
Since our conversation last year, Keith, what are your observations with regard to how insurers and advisors are responding to consumer duty 2 years on?
Yeah, it's like all major reforms, Vicky. It varies. It varies across the sector. But let's start with the good news, because even the FCA are regularly giving examples of good practice where they're seeing the market really moving forward in evolving their services to align with outcomes-based regulation. And I think just for the listeners, just to remind everyone, the reason that this is so significant is regulation was introduced in the late 80s, and we've had the best part of 3.5 decades of prescriptive rules-based regulation. Now, that's often meant that good firms have had to create checklists or tick box programs that haven't necessarily resulted in better outcomes for the client, for the customer, but we've had to comply. Otherwise, you're in breach. The major difference now is a shift to outcomes-based regulation means that you can throw the tick boxes away. You can unwind complexity if you believe that it improves outcomes in one of the 4 key areas of the duty. And candidly, if anyone really just take the time to have a look at the 3 cross-cutting rules and then the 4 areas of outcomes, I would suggest that every good firm passionately believes that they deliver against those outcomes. And I think what we're now seeing is that there's positive evidence that most firms are focused. So I think the good news from a regulatory perspective is the regulator is now seeing that instead of someone failing a regulatory process, even where a consumer has not been disadvantaged, that's the kind of regime that we've had in the past. Now the regulator is actively working with the market where it can see itself that actually firms are committed to trying to deliver the right outcomes, even if sometimes there could be improvements in the way that, for example, we communicate with clients or the way that we simplify our language. Take financial advice. I was on the board of advice firms when we moved from, I was on the board of a firm when we moved from Reasons Why letters, which was a 1-page document, and some of your listeners might remember those as well, to the need to go to more complexity through a suitability report that included more of the soft facts, not just the hard facts. But they then grew from probably starting their life as 6 pages to, I can remember signing off, thinking it was bonkers at the time, but we signed off on a 75-page suitability report.
Wow.
Well, knowing full well that it would add no value, but our compliance were convincing us that's what the regulator expected us to do. So we did it. We complied.
Crazy.
But what we're now hearing from the regulator is we need to unwind all those things because the regulator accepts. The regulator didn't tell us to do those 75 pages, by the way. We came up with that ourselves. And whether it's 75, 65, some of your listeners on here will, I'm sure, have their own tales of where they know that their clients don't read these reports. So they're really not delivering against improving client understanding, confidence, and empowerment. But maybe unwinding to a 2-page suitability report is exactly where we need to go.
Absolutely.
And outcomes-based regulation is going to allow us to do that. So it's going to take a bit of time. First of all, we've had the FCA do a couple of big events with the Alliance, one in Scotland, one in Northern Ireland. We've got another one coming up in Newcastle, where the regulator themselves actually participate in 3 key sessions on the delivery of examples of good practice, which has gone down exceptionally well with practitioners. They're not evading answering any question that comes from the audience, which is really refreshing. But actually, they keep talking about proportionality for small firms. What they do recognise is small firms, by definition, you usually find the principal has to do a bit of everything. So they're usually a lot more engaged in the end client experience, the outcomes-based principle. I think we're now seeing a much, much different approach from the regulator who's now actively engaging. They're certainly a lot more visible across the market. And
No, I agree. I mean, I was at the AFM, Association of Financial Mutuals conference, and the FCA were there, and also at the recent cover event. So yes, visibility is good, and not hiding behind what they're trying to achieve is really useful. So it demystifies what they're trying to do, which is great, and aids understanding for everybody. On the subject of vulnerability, Keith, when someone claims on an income protection policy, by definition, they're vulnerable because they've suffered or are suffering from an illness or an injury, which means they can't work. Are you able to share any examples of what firms are doing well, and conversely, what they're not doing well, to identify and support vulnerable customers? And particularly interested if you think AI could be something that could be used in this space.
Yeah, it's whenever there's an increased focus on subjects like a client's circumstances. So the first thing I'd say to your listeners is vulnerability as a word, I think, has confused the issue because we tend to think about people. I mean, clearly, if they've got a claim, then it's an identifiable issue that they're facing, and therefore that could give them a temporary period of vulnerability. We tend to move away from vulnerable circumstances to talk about client circumstances. And that's where that creates a need for different support, to bring in other colleagues. And to your point about AI, we are seeing that firms are using intelligent technology, AI, where it can identify different stress levels and then create questions. So so we're seeing that adopted across the market. It's about any client circumstance. So the first thing an advisor will do is try to understand a client's objectives. They might have to help the client understand that their needs actually should take a priority over their objectives. So they may want to do one thing, but an advisor will identify that actually there are other risks that they need to consider properly as a priority ahead of that. So we talk about the needs versus the wants. But a really important third factor when advisors give advice is they address vulnerability when they ask the question of, are there any other circumstances that I need to be aware of which might influence the advice I'm going to give you or the products I ultimately recommend. So what we're now seeing is that increased focus naturally plays to the role of professional advisors, where we might not have thought of the client as vulnerable per se, but we were really keen on understanding the client's needs and then prioritising those and providing the right level of support. What we've not necessarily been good at is identifying that we've addressed those vulnerabilities, but we didn't record it.
Yeah, really interesting. And one of the things that we identified in our recent 7 claim stories project, and we were looking at claims and how an advisor can help a claim, is actually a realization that many of our clients, we engage with them on email digitally these days.
Yeah.
And many of them, if they're in a manual job or English is their second language, they don't understand the emails, or they don't work like that, and they don't understand some of the language being used, or even how to use email. Please attach a PDF document or print this. They don't know how to print it or how to attach a PDF document. So, we need to really be mindful of who our customers really are, and obviously that's the whole point of consumer duty.
So one of the things in vulnerable circumstances is technology can sometimes be a hindrance. It's not a great experience when you're having to kind of work out for yourself what you need to do. You just want to talk to someone that will take you straight to the support that you need. So I think we're seeing technology as an enabler for human beings rather than a replacement. I mean, there are some things clearly you can do, but I think it's making us think a little bit again about, sometimes utilizing technology that's enabled organizations, and especially big organizations and insurers, to perhaps make 50 people redundant. Maybe that was the wrong outcome, because it's not a great experience just dealing with technology alone, unless that's what you want to do. And I think that's the change we're seeing is, to your point, not everyone is as familiar using even email in the same way.
Just moving on to the next question then, Keith, if we can. As some of our viewers already know, the IPTF was created 20 years ago. So we're 20 years old this year. And it was created because income protection was under-advised and undersold at that point. It's been a bit up and down since, but just recently we've seen some very encouraging growth. Do you think Consumer Duty has a role to play in that and has led to more proactive engagement from advisors and providers with this product?
I do, absolutely, Vicky. I think there's a lot of conversation going around about the holistic financial planning side of things, and to be fair, also on the mortgage side, we've seen more active conversation about mortgage brokers not just being arrangers of a loan, but actually the supplier of advice, and in particular around protection products. In the financial advice world, there's a lot of conversation going on about being a bit more holistic again. Here's one interesting statistic. By the end of this year, 65% of the UK's wealth will be in the hands of women.
Yay! At last!
Yeah, yes. And actually, it's not the intergenerational wealth transfer that's as big a threat as people had made out. But nonetheless, actually, what it's forced a lot of firms to do is think about not a client, but a family. So they tend to think about, how do you engage throughout the whole family? So we're seeing lots of advisors that are offering effectively a free consultation with adult children in particular. Those conversations are in themselves leading more often to a protection recommendation rather than obviously an investment, because they're more often in the place where they haven't accumulated assets at that stage, but they certainly need to protect, and they've often got young families, and income protection becomes absolutely a key consideration given the risks that we face in life. So I'm seeing it a lot more, financial advisors being drawn back into being a bit more holistic, but there are reasons for it. It's not just that they've switched on to it. They are thinking about the wider family of a client and how they engage the next generation to be the next generation's advisor as well. But if they're unengaged, there is that risk that I think statistically, when wealth transfers, is that they don't always use the same advisor.
No, but I mean that's good news, and I myself have experienced that actually. My advisor has started I've got three grown-up children, all one needing a mortgage, another just first job, pensions, etc. And that advisor has engaged has taken on a younger advisor to deal with the younger clients on their level. So that's all been very interesting, Keith. Thank you so much. Final question for you. It's just been over 2 years now since Consumer Duty came into force. But if firms want to benchmark their own practices or find resources to support the work that they're doing in this area, where can they find this kind of information? Where should they go?
Of course. Well, if they visit consumerduty.org, www.consumerduty.org, we've got two self-analysis tools that cover all aspects of consumer duty that will allow anyone. They're free to use. They can also be used as part of an audit trail. So where the regulator is keen that firms understand where they can evidence that they're doing the right thing. So it's no good just saying, I know I'm doing the right thing. We've got to be able to evidence that. There are two free analysis tools that any firm can access via our website, which will help them benchmark. So they are benchmarking tools as well. In addition to that, there's free resources available on the sharing of good practice in various aspects of consumer duty. But we also signpost off to other organisations because there is a wealth of information out there. But I guess a bit like consumers not knowing where to start, in fairness to advisors, it's sometimes as daunting for them as where they go. So we're trying to create a repository where it's not just about the resources we provide, it's signposting off to organisations like yours and others who can support and help them with that benchmarking.
Absolutely. And we're hosting in the advisor tools section of our website, which is the most popular visited part of our website. We are hosting some information about consumer duty, vulnerable customers, how to get in contact. So if anyone's listening, you can go through our own website too. Just click on advisor tools, top right hand side, and you can get through to the Consumer Duty Alliance information that way as well. Keith, thank you so much. That's been really useful. I'm glad 2 years on. Will I be speaking to you again next year? 3 years on, hopefully.
Well, consumer duty is here for good. It's never going to go. So unlike every other regulatory reform, which things like polarization, depolarization, retail distribution review, they're regulatory terms. Consumer duty is what we've always been about, and even the regulator now realizes that they've introduced something that is permanent. And I hope we never go back to rules-based, prescriptive rules-based regulation. So I hope that I'm pretty confident, as long as we carry on the path that we're going, that we're going to continue to see outcomes-based regulation lead the way, which means the sector can own it. And on that basis, I think the Consumer Duty Consumer Duty Alliance is here for good.
Excellent. Good news. And on behalf of the protection industry, I'd like to thank you, Tony and Emma, and the Consumer Duty Alliance for all your support for our industry. And we cannot wait to see what the Protection Alliance looks like. So we look forward to that one. Thanks ever so much, Keith. See you again next year.